Hey there, it's Ellie. Listen, I'm making this recording because I want to reach out to people who are struggling with their drinking and are having a hard time quitting. The reason I'm making this is because I just got off the phone with a gal whose sister won't stop drinking. And I wanted to make a video for you guys who do struggle with alcoholism because I think that I understand how it is when you engage in self-destructive behavior. Although I did not struggle with alcoholism, I definitely get self-destructive tendencies because I used to have an eating disorder and I still struggle with caffeine addiction. Caffeine's my thing. I used to smoke, but I no longer smoke, and I just feel so much better about my life that now that I don't smoke anymore. And I just want to reach out to you guys, and because here's the thing. I think that when you drink, and you know that you shouldn't be drinking anymore, and you have your friends and family trying to intervene, and they're up in your face and telling you you're an alcoholic and you need help, blah, blah, blah. I think they're trying to help, but it actually kind of makes things worse, because now you have all this pressure on you to change, and you can feel like you're backed up against a wall. And so I get that, and so I wanted to make a recording that is no pressure from anybody. You don't know me. You might feel like you know me if you read my blog, but I think when I struggled with an eating disorder, I didn't want to take advice from just anybody. I wanted to hear it from somebody who had been through it and got better. And although I have not been through alcoholism, I completely understand the mentality of why people have self-destructive behavior. Part of it was I saw myself as screwed up and damaged. And, there's things that a lot of people are repressing. I find that usually when people drink, there's some kind of repression going on. It's funny because I know a lot of salespeople who drink, and there is no job that will make you want to drink like sales, because you always have to put on a happy face even if you're not having a happy day, right? Or if there's something that's happened to you in your lifetime, like maybe you were beat up, or maybe you were molested, or something horrible happened to you in your life, and you feel like you just have to go on. And, in life, we kind of are in a position where we feel like we have to put on the happy face all the time, when you feel like that's not really how you feel. You feel like, oh my God, this horrible thing happened to me, and I can't talk about it, and I still got to put on the happy face. It's just this really bad position to be in. And so, and it's amazing how many people I've talked to how many women were molested in the 70s. It seems like there is a whole lot of cases I've had where a mom calls me or a sister calls me, and they're trying to save this person in their family who's a woman who's in her 40s. Maybe that's just my own imagination, but it seems like I'm in my 40s, and it seems like there was a rampant amount of child molesters back then. There was a pedophile in my family, okay? He went after every girl in the family. And I don't think it's, a coincidence that I wound up with an eating disorder. My cousin wound up with an eating disorder. There's a lot of crazy stuff. He died 30 years ago, but I'm just saying, I understand. I think part of the reason that I have always been drawn to alcoholics is because I can relate to that feeling of being just fucked up, okay? That's what it is it's it's kind of fun to hang out with other people who are messed up. It's almost like you're celebrating how messed up you are. I used to love smoking, when you'd go to a club, I was smoking in my 20s, and I loved going outside for a smoke break, and you're hanging out with all these other people who are killing themselves. We're all killing ourselves, right? Drinking and smoking, and it feels good to just acknowledge that as your sort of badge that's it's not that you're saying it's cool, but it's fun. It's fun to hang out with the fucked up crowd because you're just celebrating your fucked upness, it doesn't matter. But when I hit about, when I was in my early 30s, I just got to a point where I got tired of it. It was I was maybe mid 30s. I was just tired of it. I was tired of hanging out with the fucked up crowd. I wanted to get better. I wanted to go running. I wanted to just be healthy. And I'm telling you, that was one of the best things I've ever done in my life, is stop smoking. I'm so happy to be a non-smoker now. I am happy in the same way that my husband is happy to not be drinking. There's a lot of people who don't drink anymore who are just happy about it. They're like, he says like, oh my God, I'm just so glad I'm not drinking anymore. Like, he's said that so many times to me in the last 3 years since he has not been drinking, where, you know, he just tells me about how he remembers how difficult it was. Like, what it was like that he'd have to plan his whole day around his alcoholism. Like, he felt like he couldn't go to the same store twice in a row to get alcohol because, you know, the guy would recognize him and think he's an alcoholic, so he couldn't hide it. So he'd have to like go to different stores in the area. And meanwhile, I was clueless. I had no idea he was doing all this stuff, but I kind of got to see into the mind of an alcoholic, you know, and it was interesting. And I used to kind of feel the same way when I had an eating disorder. It was like, I mean, not to that degree, but I felt like it was something that I couldn't talk about. That was definitely a repressed thing. For me, I had binge eating disorder where I would literally just binge to the point where I would practically pass out. And it drives me crazy because I see these commercials with I don't know if it's Monica Seles. It's some famous tennis player where she talks about how she's, you know, taking these drugs, and, you know, the pharmaceutical industry and doctors just make you want to think that you need to take all these drugs to fix your problem. It's not drugs, okay? You got to fix your head, in my opinion. And the reason I think that people drink and smoke and do these self-destructive things is because you see yourself as damaged, and you feel kind of like, you know, I mean, this, you know, pardon me, this is just my guess. At least this is how I looked at it, you know, when I was doing self-destructive stuff. I saw myself as damaged, and it's kind of like, I almost felt like I was irreparably damaged, like it couldn't be undone. And I think it's even harder for people who struggle with alcoholism because, you know, like the gal that I just got off the phone with, you know, she feels like her sister is being told, and I know a lot of you guys are being told by the doctors, they make you feel like this is something you're going to have to deal with the rest of your life, is going in and getting drained and taking these drugs and doing all this stuff. And in my mind, that's not true. I think that if you want to turn your life around, you can get rid of just enough scar tissue to be able to have a normal life and a normal liver again. But you got to stop drinking. If you don't stop drinking, you're just going to have the same problems over and over and over again, and it's going to get worse. And, you know, the question is, what are you here for? Like, we were so lucky to be born as humans. Yeah, I was just looking at this video the other day that was about, it showed all these, like, different, what was it? Like, amoebas or something. It was like the bloodstream of, you know, just a regular person. And they showed, like, how your defense mechanisms work, and how when you have bacteria in your bloodstream, these neutrophils, I think they were called, they kind of go in and they like kill all the bacteria. And I'm looking at all these like bacteria and thinking, how is it that I got so lucky to be born a human and not a bacteria or a flea or an animal that's stuck in a factory farm, or, you know, like there's so many things we could have been born as, but we got to be born as like the dominant species on the earth. How did that happen? How did I get that lucky? You know, because the odds are like, what, 1 in a billion? So, you know, as long as you're here, what are you here for? And, you know, when I had an eating disorder, part of that eating disorder came from the fact that I was, you know, the most miserable people you'll ever meet are the people who can't get over themselves. They make everything about themselves. Poor me. That's what I was doing. When I had that eating disorder, I made it all about me. Poor me. And when you can't get out of your own head and look beyond yourself, then things get way worse. And I think that we really struggle with that in this day and age because we're taught from the time we're little kids and watch TV that everything should be all about us. You see commercials then, it's all about you and your problems, and they try and make it, you think that there's something wrong with you so that you can, you know, go get it addressed and fix it and pay them money to fix, you know, anybody who can fix your problem is going to make money. And so, we live in a very self-obsessed culture. And I think that, hundreds and thousands of years ago, people were not like that because it was all about the tribe. Half of our energy had to be devoted towards just keeping the tribe sustainable, right? Like everybody had to go hunt and gather, and that energy didn't get focused back on us. But now we have all this extra energy because we don't need to help the tribe, right? It's not all about other people. Now it's all about us. It's like we can go to our day jobs and whatever, but I mean, we are kind of helping other people when we're working, but it's different. It's like, we feel like, when we get our food, we can just go to the grocery store and get, we can order off Amazon. I mean, everything is so easy that we don't have to spend any of that extra energy focusing on others, so it all kind of gets bottled up in us. And if you can find a way to take that energy and put it out there towards other people, for me, that was a big part of the key of getting over my eating disorder. I actually went vegetarian because what happened was, and this is an eating disorder I had for like 11 years, okay? And when I went vegetarian, I did it because I wanted to do something that was really disciplined, that was going to not be all about me, because I was at a point, I was at a really low point in my life where I felt like I was always making everything about me. And when I was able to just say, you know what, I need to go through 30 days of just making things not about me, and I wanted to do something that was really disciplined, that I could feel really proud of. And both my sisters had been vegetarian, and I always felt kind of guilty about eating meat because I knew that I didn't have the balls to kill an animal myself. And I felt like, man, there's something really wrong with this. If I'm eating these animals that I know I couldn't kill myself, that is damaging me spiritually to do this. And so I thought, for 30 days, I'm not going to eat any meat. And what was crazy about that is that all that weight I had been struggling with for 11 years just dripped off my body. And it was like a bonus. I wasn't even trying to lose weight. It's just that that's what happened when I decided that I wanted to do something for the betterment of others, for animals, And it was like, suddenly it wasn't all about me. And I got to see really clearly how, in my lifetime, that was the problem, is I was trying to make everything about me. Like, I should lose weight, I should do push-ups, I should do sit-ups, I should, I need to look good, and blah, blah, blah. And it was so stupid. It was like this wasted energy. It's not normal. When you look at our ancestors, like over the years, they didn't even have mirrors, okay? They didn't even know what they look like. So it's very weird and kind of abnormal for us now in the modern age to be so obsessed with ourselves and our image and our looks and all that. And I was able to let that go when I stopped making everything about me. And so, with alcoholism, again, I can't completely relate to alcoholism, but I understand that, anybody who has any kind of drug abuse, like whether it's alcohol or drugs, like any kind of drug. I mean, for me, it's coffee. We all have our thing. And, like the reason I drink coffee is because I want a state change. I want to feel better. I don't want to feel just blah. I want to feel like those endorphins. But there's a lot of different ways you can get endorphins. Running is like such a good endorphin rush. I just learned a couple years ago that if you go running, then I used to not feel this because, like, how they talk about runner's high? I didn't really feel runner's high in the past when I'd go running, because what I would do is I'd go running, come home, take a shower, and then just go on with my day and I just keep on walking around. But what I found is that if you go running and then you sit down in place, you get this crazy head rush. Like, say you run 5 miles. You get this crazy, awesome head rush. I guess it's from the, there's like, I can't remember the name of it. There's a guy who wrote a book about this. It's called No Heart Disease. And I think it's like L-arginine produces nitric oxide. That's it. And the nitric oxide, I think, in your body, when it goes to your brain, after you've gone running, it's like this total head rush. And so, it's like if you can get to the point where you are not drinking anymore, like if you can start exercising, that can help you. And by the way, in my opinion, cirrhosis is absolutely reversible, okay? But it's not for everybody. It's for most people. I believe that it is possible to reduce scar tissue, but you have to give it time. And you got to stop drinking. And you should stop smoking too. And, you know, I just want to tell you from somebody who can totally relate to having a hard... I didn't have a hard childhood, but I had things happen in my childhood that either I could look at it like that left me irreparably damaged, or I can look at it like what somebody does to you, you can choose to let it affect you at the core, okay? Because if somebody does something to you, like if they hit you or punch you or molest you or something like that, they may, you know, when you're a child, they may be able to physically touch you, but they're not, like, your body is I mean, it's kind of like, you know how lizards regenerate, like, or they lose their skin? You know, humans are like that too. We are constantly regenerating our cells, okay? So I look at it like, you know, if somebody touched me as a child, which is what happened, it wasn't so bad, but it was bad enough so that it was just this weird thing that I blocked out for a long time. You know, that didn't damage me to my core. And as a matter of fact, it made me stronger, because now I got a really keen eye for things like that. And I am like a watchdog when it comes to my stepkids. I'm like, I tell them, if anybody ever touches you in any way, you know, I will kill them. So, you know, and I would just be clueless about that kind of thing, about the fact that that kind of thing happens if that did not happen to me. So it was just good enough so that it made me keenly aware. And I think it made me, you know, in a way, I would never tell that person, well, he's dead, dead for a long time, but I would never tell that person that they made me a better person, because it was my choice. It was what happened to me that I chose to make me a better person. You know what I mean? It wasn't what they did. They're an asshole. Like, I thought about taking a dog and having the dog, like, crap on his grave, okay? Like, that's how, like, there's a part of me that's kind of bitter about that, because I think that it was wrong what he did. And what sucks is that this guy was like the patriarch of the family, well respected, everybody looked up to him, and to this day I feel like this is something that I feel like I can't really talk about publicly, because it would bring shame to my family, which I'm telling you, one day I think I am going to talk about this publicly, but I don't, because I'm just like, nobody wants to hear about this. Nobody wants our family name to be tainted, right? So I get it. It's not my family name. It's not my last name, but I'll just tell you, it's on my mom's side. And this guy, and not my mom's fault, had nothing to do with it. And she totally believed me when I told her, by the way, even though she found it odd, but she did believe me. She wasn't one of these moms who's like, no, that there's no, you know, thought I was lying or something. She got it. But I'm just saying, what's frustrating, I think, for a lot of people who have been molested or abused or whatever, is that they feel like they can't talk about it, because it's kind of like, you know, your life is kind of like Facebook. It's like, there's the things that you can choose to show publicly, and then there's the things that you keep private, or the things that you just reveal to friends, right? And with some kind of thing like that, you feel like you don't want certain things on your wall, right? Like, I've had times where, like, I didn't know how to block my wall, and people would just post random shit on my wall, and I'd be like, why are you posting that on my wall? I don't want that on my wall. And it's like, you kind of feel like if you were to talk about this thing that happened to you, now it's on your wall. And it feels like, even if you take it off, you feel like people got to see it, and now it's like a permanent part of you and your history. And so you feel kind of like, and not only that, I feel like if I posted that kind of thing or talked about it in any way, now it's not just on my wall, now it's on everybody's wall. Everybody in my family who's on my Facebook, now it's on their wall too, because now I've just exposed this thing, and now we all are the family that had this creepy weird thing, you know, this weird patriarch in our family that could have damaged all of us, and now it's a big question mark, who'd he do that to, and all this stuff. And so it's like, it turns into this big ugly mess. And so it's a lot easier to just not talk about it. But then when you do that, you feel like you're repressing it, and it feels wrong, because what bugs me about that is that you feel like now that person who did that horrible thing got away with it. So you're trapped. You feel like you can't talk about it. You know, you're in this position where you just can't talk about it. You're stuffing it. And it only occurred to me when it's funny because my husband's alcoholism actually really turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because I understood that I had a lot of pressure on me to lose weight, because I actually used to be a singer a long time ago. And every time we would do a show, I would always tell myself I had to lose weight before a show. And I would end up gaining all this weight. And it was because I was putting so much pressure on myself. So I really thought that the majority of my eating disorder had to do with that pressure. And I still do think that was the majority of it. And it was all about, like I said, me getting wrapped up in myself. But I also really feel like now that I've talked to so many people who struggle with alcoholism, and I've talked to their family members who are trying to help them, I really think that a lot of my eating disorder had to do with repression and the fact that this thing happened to me in my childhood where I couldn't talk about it. And it made me feel like a weird kid. And I got really, really good at putting on the smiley face and talking or just pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. And inside, I was like, I don't want to say a pressure cooker, but it was like there was this thing that just wasn't right on the inside that I was suppressing, and I hadn't talked about it. And it's so funny because I went to an Overeaters Anonymous meeting, and when I went there, I saw all these people, and they're all like, talking about their problems and how they ate this and that. And, like, yeah, I messed up again today. I had this and that. It's like, I don't want to hear that. I wanted to jump up on the chair. So this was like, Overeaters Anonymous. It was like Alcoholics Anonymous for overeaters, right? I just wanted to jump up on that chair and go, let's fix this. Let's stop whining about our problems. I don't want to hear. Let's not talk about our problems. Let's figure out how to fix it and move on. My husband hated AA, and I guarantee if I was an alcoholic, I'd hate AA too. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about AA, but I am just that kind of person who, I don't want to dwell on the past. I don't want to talk about my problems. Life is way too short. I don't know about what you believe, but I believe that we get one shot here. There might be an afterlife, but it's not the same thing as this time you get here on earth. So I say utilize it as much as you can, get past your problems, work past them, and then move on and enjoy your life. And that whole thing about scar tissue not being able to be reversed, in my opinion, that's a bunch of BS. That's like my dermatologist when I was a teenager telling me that there was no way that I could reverse my own acne. He was full of shit, okay? That guy got busted for insurance fraud, I found out later on. As long as he led me to believe that I couldn't fix my own problem, I was like a customer for life. And he lied to my face. He told me that diet has nothing to do with acne. That's the biggest lie anybody has ever told me in my life, okay? It was so not true. And he was giving me stuff. He was giving me antibiotics that were actually making my liver problems worse. And so I just kept on going back to him and back to him and back to him. Meanwhile, he was like, making me more sick. And so when you guys are going to the doctor to be drained and, all this stuff is going on with your livers, like, I want to tell you that they'll make you think that there's nothing you can do to heal yourself. And that's a bunch of garbage, in my opinion, okay? I'm not saying that there's no value at all in transplants, but I've seen quite a few people, I've heard quite a few stories of people who died waiting for transplants. They make you think a transplant, that's it. And they make you think that you're going to have to be drained all the time. Let me tell you something about the liver. The liver is like a filter. It is a filter. It's the largest filter in your body by weight, right? We have the kidneys and the lungs. And if your filter, this is what happens. So you get inflammation. There's a lot of things that cause inflammation. Almost every, so many pharmaceutical prescription medications are not good for the liver. And when something causes inflammation in the liver, sleeping pills, a lot of things can do it, alcohol, obviously, that the inflammation causes kind of like a certain amount of clog in your liver, but not like a full-on clog like cement. that, which is what happens when that scar tissue, or when the inflammation turns into scar tissue. So what typically happens is, like I saw this happen with my husband, with alcohol. When he lost his job, he just nearly drank himself to death. And it starts off as being a little bit of fluid retention, because now you have a little bit of a blockage in the drain. It's literally like your liver is a lot like a drain. You know, like when you go, if you take a shower and you wash your hair, you know, the hair starts going down, and next thing you know, you're standing in an inch of water. Like I have one of those filters, one of those mesh filters that's goes over the tub to catch the hair. And when that starts getting, you know, clogged or filled up with hair, then, you know, next thing you know, I'm standing in an inch of water. And one day it occurred to me, gosh, this is kind of like how edema is. It's like the fluid can't go through, so it's backing up. And that's what's happening with your body. Your body is the most incredible plumbing system in the whole world, way more complex than a drain. And so if you know, so there will be like a little bit of water retention in the beginning, but then when that inflammation turns into scar tissue, which tends to happen over the course of about a month, then that's when you have a real problem. That's when it's like cement. Like, I don't know if you guys heard about the homeowners who were mad at the banks when they lost their homes, and they'd pour cement down the toilet to get back at the banks. But, you know, that's kind of like what happens. It's like now there's ain't nothing going through. It's like the whole system kind of seizes up. And, you know, it's when you get to that point, you know, the doctors will say, oh, there's nothing that can be done. There's no way to reverse scar tissue. In my opinion, that is not true. I've seen my husband reverse his scar tissue, and I do believe that it's possible to reverse enough so that you can unblock the liver and get it functioning again. Because, you know, you don't need the whole liver to function, okay? You can just unblock enough so that blood can go through. So the reason that people get bleeding varices and like gastric bleeding, this is why. Doctors don't really explain this. I didn't understand this for years. I just kind of learned this recently. People tried to explain it before, but I didn't have a good analogy, so I just wasn't getting it. But this is how it works. So when there's that blockage, then your blood is supposed to go through your liver, right? But if it can't go through, then what happens is it backs up. So imagine taking a water balloon and stretching it over the nozzle of a hose. Like taking like, not a regular water balloon, but like one of those long ones that are like a hot dog. Imagine taking that, stretching it over the nozzle of a hose, and you cut off the end so that the water can go through. That's like what your blood is like, your blood vessels. The blood is supposed to circulate everywhere in your body. I swear to God, I can't think of a single disease that is not somehow related to a plumbing issue. If you have cancer, diabetes, so many of those things relate to a circulation issue. There's a blockage in the system, and when the blood can't go through, then you're going to have problems. And so, you know, so anyway, back to the hose thing. Picture, you know, the blood's going through or the water's going through, but now imagine tying a knot at the end of the balloon. If you do that, now all of a sudden the water's going to back up, right? Because it's hit a wall, basically, and it can't go through, so it will start to enlarge, and then eventually that balloon will burst. And that's what happens to people when they bleed, when they get bleeding varices. That's why it's happening. It's because your blood can't go through, so it's backing up, and it's caught. Your blood vessels are not meant to handle that kind of pressure, because the blood vessels are made just so that blood can go through, not backwards. And so, you know, you're at a high risk for portal hypertension. What happens is doctors, what they give you to treat that is they'll give you like a proton pump inhibitor, otherwise known as Nexium, Prilosec, Pantoprazole, Omeprazole, the purple pill, Prevacid. They will give you an acid blocker to stop acid production. What they don't tell you is that those things actually cause more inflammation, which can cause more scar tissue and liver failure. So you're actually, in a way, making your problem worse. Now, I'm not saying don't take them, because if you're at a high risk for bleeding to death, you got to do something about that. So, yeah, they're giving you something that'll help you, but in my opinion, if you're trying to reverse scar tissue, that's not going to help you. That's going to make, then it's going to be like impossible, because you're constantly creating more scar tissue. It reminds me of that, there was like a video that I saw, I don't remember if it was Sesame Street or Electric Company, but it was some video that I saw as a kid where they'd have like a janitor and he was like sweeping, or he was mopping, but then he kept on walking over the areas where he mopped. So he was constantly replacing the damage. You know, it was like this, he wasn't helping himself, you know? And so that's how I look at it with the liver. If you're always adding these inflammatory, you know, issues, then you're not going to be able to unblock your liver. But doctors, they don't take that approach, that they don't believe, or they don't tell you that it's possible to reverse scar tissue. Their approach is, the only way that you can reverse scar tissue is to get a transplant. That's it. And I think that that's wrong. I mean, I've seen it. My husband did it. Okay, you guys? He had more fluid drained from his abdomen than anybody I've ever seen have fluid drained. He had 21 liters of fluid drained in 1 week. I've talked to hundreds of people. I have not talked to one person who had that much fluid drained. Okay, so he was like a worst case scenario. His melt score was 28. His skin was yellow. I mean, he was knocking on death's door. I was just watching a video that I took of him when he was in the hospital, because one day I was taking it thinking, God, one day this would make a great documentary, because it was so absurd what was going on. I mean, he had encephalopathy. He didn't recognize me. It was crazy. And I also wanted to show it to him so he could see what happened, because he was catatonic. He didn't know who I was, and I wanted to see, you know, it was like, I thought this would be a pretty good way to get him to stop drinking, is to watch this video and see, look, this is what happens when you drink. I mean, he did stop drinking, but I wanted to make sure that he continued with that, you know, so, and it was pretty effective, I think. So anyway, I'm sure you guys have seen my page, about, well, maybe you haven't, but if you want to see what happens to you if you don't stop drinking, go to quitwhileyou'reahead.org, and that will take you to the page that I wrote about. It'll show you all the symptoms and the, you know, things that happen if you don't stop drinking. I'm sure some of you guys listening to this have already seen that, but I just, you know, or you're going through it, so I don't need to tell you. But I do just want to give you hope, okay? Because when I was trying to help my husband figure out something that would reverse his cirrhosis, hope was in short supply. I'll tell you what, it was like, you know, it was like I told you guys when I would go to, you know, that one time I went to Overeaters Anonymous, you know, it was like I was with all these other people who were saying, oh, well, I ate this, that, today. It's like there were just so many miserable people, and that's what I was finding when I was going online trying to find people who had been through this. I'd go to these discussion boards, and there was all these people like whining and tired. I couldn't hear them, but mentally I felt like I could hear them. It was just like being back in that room with all the people from Overeaters Anonymous, like complaining about their problems. It's like, I didn't want to be hanging out with these people. I wanted us to all get better. Let's all get better and move on. Life is way too short to be complaining about this stuff. And like these people, what happens is, what doctors do is they make you feel real special if you qualify for the transplant, because it's this long process, right? My husband had to meet with like 12 different people. And by the way, the only reason he wanted to get a transplant, he didn't want a transplant. What he wanted was to get his umbilical hernia fixed. And one day, I'm going to upload a video of that, and it's going to blow your guys' freaking minds. The thing was the size of a grapefruit, okay? And he did give me permission to use it. But anyway, he wanted to get that fixed. Well, the hospital said, or the doctors said, well, if you get the surgery for this, then you could suddenly need emergency transplant surgery, because what happens is when you get anesthesia for a surgery, you can suddenly have liver failure because the anesthesia can just kill your liver. And so they need that backup assurance that just in case you need a sudden transplant, you know, that you're qualified. And what's crazy is we ended up finding an even better doctor who did not need all of that, who was the best in the country. He's done like 25,000 operations. His name is Dr. Kevin Peterson. He's in Las Vegas. Definitely look him up if you have an umbilical hernia. And he said he was able to do it without all that screening, which, you know, I do kind of appreciate the screening. What was crazy is Dr. Peterson, his charge was $6,000. And the hospital said their charge was $92,000, although it was going to be covered by insurance. And this is another lesson to us that just because something is covered by insurance does not mean it's a good idea. We could have had that surgery for free, but then I'd have to worry the rest of my life that my husband had this mesh in his body that could end up failing and could cause some chronic pain. And the people at the hospital were not willing to do the surgery without mesh. They were not experienced with it. They didn't believe it was possible. Dr. Peterson didn't take insurance. He was $6,000. Well, Dr. Peterson did a fantastic job. No mesh. He was amazing. Totally, it healed beautifully. It's true, it's kind of funny because my husband has no belly button now, but that's okay. It's almost just like he's got this skin there over where the belly button was. But I'm so grateful to Dr. Peterson. That was totally worth the $6,000. We had to borrow it, but I was just so grateful that we were able to do it. And so, anyway, I'm just saying that, I see a lot of people, they get these surgeries and things, or, they qualify for the transplant. They feel so happy because, woo, now you can get a transplant. It's like the doctors will make you feel like so special if you go through the transplant, evaluation process and you pass. They make you feel like you just graduated from Harvard, like they're about to, you might as well get a plaque on the wall or something. That doesn't make you special, okay? Just because you qualified for the transplant. That's like a license for you to pay them $500,000 for your insurance company to pay them a whole big chunk of change. That's nothing. There's nothing special about that, okay? What just irritated me was I'd go on these discussion boards, which, by the way, I got kicked off of. As soon as I started talking about the water, they kicked me off. And I know I can go back on with a new name and snoop around and see what they're saying about me, because I heard they're all talking about me. And, I've had people who are on the boards who report back to me and say what's going on. And I know that they were saying, oh, she's just full of it. She just is talking all about the water. I'm not just talking about the water, okay? I have hundreds of posts designed to help people, okay? It's not all about the water. It's just that that's the fastest thing I've ever seen turn somebody around. You want me to not tell people about that? Please. So anyway, but I would go on these discussion boards and people are all about the transplants. It's like they just want to talk about transplants. It's like this big pity party where and I understand, okay, I don't mean to offend anybody who's had a transplant, because I get it. If you really were led to believe that that is your only option, then okay, I get it and I feel for you. There are things in my life where I was led to believe that I only had the option of whatever. Like when I had Accutane, I thought Accutane was my only option for acne. I was just cursed. It was the only thing I could do, and it was the maximum thing I could do, so I wanted to do it. It didn't matter to me if I was left with lifelong damage. That was what I was going to do. And so I get it. And I hope you guys can see that part of the reason I made this blog and I feel the way that I do is I feel burned by the doctors who didn't tell me there are other options. There are ways you can heal yourself. But they don't make any money from that. And you can't blame them for not telling you. It's not in their best interest to advise you and have you not be their customer. That's just, they're not just supporting themselves. They are supporting a whole staff who's supporting their families. It's a whole business, so you can't totally blame them for not telling you, but I'm going to tell you, okay, because we couldn't afford a transplant. I didn't want my husband to have a transplant, and he didn't want to have one either. He was just straight up with them, and he told them, I don't want a transplant, and they actually took him off the list. They said, okay, you don't qualify. We're not going to give it to somebody who doesn't want it. And he just told them straight up, I only want this transplant because it's the only way you guys are gonna qualify me for a hernia repair. And by then his MELD score was down to like an 8 or 9, so it was too low. He just had no business being on that transplant list. But I see there's a lot of people who are on those boards who just talk about their transplants. It's like a race. It reminds me of like when you're a little girl and all your friends are getting their periods and everybody's just like, oh, talking about, when they got their periods. Actually, my friends didn't really do that, but you kind of get that impression that goes on with when you read Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. It's like this cultural thing where it's like everybody, it's like this magical thing that you're waiting for. And then when it happens, you find out it's really not very magical. As a matter of fact, it's a huge pain in the ass. And you kind of wish that it didn't have to happen, It's like, I feel like that's kind of like how the transplant list is, I think. I don't feel like the doctors really laid out the reality of a transplant to us. They didn't tell us that those medications, those anti-rejection drugs would make you feel tired. That's what I heard. People on discussion boards say that. You can go look for yourself. Like, they'll admit, I don't think everybody has it to the degree that some people do, but in general, if you're taking an anti-rejection drug, the whole purpose of that is to lower your immune system so your body can accept the transplanted organ. Well, how are you going to feel? How do you generally feel when your immune system is lowered? Do you feel good, or do you feel kind of crappy? There's a lot of people out there who will tell you they don't feel good when they're on those things. And they cost like $3,000 a month. And sometimes what I've heard is that you might have to be on them for the rest of your life. Is that a good life? Now, true, if that really, really was your only option, then yeah, you just got to grin and bear it. But in my opinion, based on what I've seen, that's not your only option. They also didn't mention to my husband that those anti-rejection drugs can put you at a higher risk for diabetes and cancer. I mean, and he saw 12 different people. You think one of those people could have told him that? Nobody told him that. They might have used language, that sort of said something like that, but not like how you need to hear it. You need to hear the words, they can increase your risk of diabetes and cancer. Just like when you're first diagnosed with cirrhosis, you need someone to tell you, do not drink anymore. This will kill you, period. You got to be done. I've talked to many people who have said, they didn't make it clear that I wasn't supposed to drink anymore. I mean, come on. There's kind of a part of the back of our brains that kind of knows that we shouldn't be doing certain things, but we rely on these people in the know, the doctors, to validate these things for us. And you can't be relying on that, okay? You have to use your own common sense smarts and know you shouldn't be drinking anymore. But yes, if they haven't told you, let me tell you. You are not supposed to drink anymore, okay? Period. Let's just like make that really clear in case there's any confusion. No more drinking, okay? Cirrhosis, you will die early. We're all going to die. You're just going to die a lot earlier and in a very painful, sad way. You don't want to go out like that. You don't want people to remember you for going out like that, okay? Just turn things around now if you can. The human body has an amazing, amazing ability to be able to heal itself. It wants to heal itself. It is constantly, constantly trying to heal itself. But we get in the way. We're always trying to mess with our bodies somehow, and we think we're so much smarter than our bodies. Our smart bodies are way smarter than we'll ever be. Okay, they have it all figured out. The body just runs on itself. It's like a constant plumbing system. When you think about it, generally, if you want a plumbing system to work, you kind of have to, you have to build it. You didn't have to build your body. You were just born with it. You were blessed with it. There's this constant flow all the time that just self-operates, and you didn't have to do anything. So you just, let it heal itself. But you have to do extra things. If you're at to the point where you have cirrhosis, then it does need help, in my opinion. And I have resources on the blog for that. What people don't realize, I think, in the beginning anyway, is that, in order to, you're going to have to quit drinking anyway, because they won't give you a transplant unless you've shown that you've quit drinking for at least 6 months. At least that was a requirement for the hospital that my husband went to. And so you might as well stop now and save your liver, because if you want a transplant, you got to stop drinking anyway. So if you're going to have to do it eventually, you might as well do it now, and you'll have a better quality of life. I'm telling you guys, it is so much better to be drug-free. Yes, I still have coffee, okay, fine, but that's not so bad. I realize that's not nearly as destructive as, my overeating and when I was smoking and when my husband was drinking. I mean, life is a lot better. Now he's just so much happier now. He can go on 12-mile hikes. He can run a mile in 8.5 minutes with no training, okay? There's things he was able to do that did reverse scar tissue, because he showed on a FibroScan, his FibroScan score was 9.3. The marker for cirrhosis is 12.5. Those scores go all the way up to 75. So I know he reversed it, okay? So I'm sorry, but I just do not believe it when I hear people say, oh, it can't be reversed. It can be reversed. But your liver needs help. It needs that extra help. So basically what I feel like the doctors should say, to be honest, to be fully honest, is cirrhosis can't be reversed. if you don't help your liver, if you don't do something about it. And they miss that, they leave off that second part. And now I am not saying that there's a guarantee for everybody, because for some people, you know what? For some people, it is too late. They waited too long, and when things get really, really bad, it's kind of like a coin toss if you're going to make it or not. 50-50. You know, because now you need so much help in reversing that scar tissue. You might not have enough time. I mean, I'm just being honest. That's how it is if you don't stop early. Because when you get to the point where you have ascites and edema and all this stuff going on, then you can go any second for any reason. The story I tell the most is this one guy. He was given 2 months to live, and his wife, she was going to get this water machine that I keep talking about on the blog, and so they were going to get it, but he really liked to drink Sprite, and you're not supposed to drink Sprite when you have this water, because the phosphoric acid in the Sprite will just cancel out the effects of the water. So he loved his Sprite, so she didn't want to get this machine for him until like Monday, or she didn't want to make him drink the water until Monday. So it was a Friday. She got the loan for the machine. And I said, yeah, that's probably fine. Just get it on Monday. Like I thought it would be great if they got it that day, but no big deal if he wanted that weekend to drink Sprite. Cause I used to have a Sprite addiction. So I know how addictive that stuff is. Okay. I know it sounds crazy to other people who don't have a Sprite addiction, but there's something about that fizziness that was just so awesome. So anyway, and I gotta say, I was addicted to that. Damn you, McDonald's! They made it so that you could go get a Sprite for just $1. This huge one. So it was so bad. It's like, God, it's so bad for our culture to have things like that where you can have addictions like that. But anyway, so where was I going? So the wife, she decided she'd get the machine on Monday, and the guy had a heart attack that night. Okay. It was like a Friday night. Either he had it that night or early in the morning on Saturday. But when she checked on him after midnight, she found he was cold and he just stopped breathing. And the thing about when you have cirrhosis is that, your bloodstream is like this, just full of toxins, right? Because your liver normally took care of all that. Your liver is like the garbage man. Everybody takes the garbage man for granted, just like everybody takes their liver for granted. It's only when it stops working that you realize how important it was. And so now all of a sudden the trash is not going out and it's all in your bloodstream. And now it's like this toxic waste stream that is circulating all throughout your body, and it is literally poisoning you. It can poison you to death. You've got ammonia in your bloodstream that's not supposed to be there. You've got all this debris that's not supposed to be there. So you're at a really high risk for a heart attack or a stroke. I didn't understand that at first. And then I started seeing people just randomly dying of these heart attacks and strokes. And I was like, oh my God. And it's from the debris and the stuff that's not supposed to be there. It can clog your bloodstream. And when these toxins and the junk gets lodged, then you can have a heart attack. And so, the key is to detoxify and clean your blood. And you can do that. There's ways that you can totally clean your bloodstream. I'm just letting you know there's hope. There's stuff out there that you can do. I can't say there's a cure for anything. I'm not supposed to do that. I live in America where there's like strict FDA regulations, but I have medical research that shows that scar tissue can be reversed. And so I just want to give you guys that hope, because when my husband was sick, I was looking for hope online, and I was having the damnedest time trying to find it. And that's why I made this blog, because it was so frustrating for me that I wasn't finding a lot of hope. And I wanted to be able to give people that hope that I didn't have when I was looking for solutions. And every time I found something new, I thought it just seemed kind of not selfish to keep it to myself, but I knew how frustrated I was that nobody else had shared this stuff with me. So I thought, okay, well, I guess I got to do it then. I'm going to share it with other people so that you guys don't have to waste your time looking all over the internet and, calling different places and seeing what's out there. It's like, why not have it in one place? So there are definitely things that you can do to reverse the scar tissue, to heal from cirrhosis. And another thing I want to recommend to you guys is there is a book that's called Healing the Shame That Binds You. And I have that on my blog. I'm probably going to make a page for this video to be on, where I'll put that on the page. But it basically, people who struggle with alcoholism often are dealing with shame of some sort. Like I was suppressing this shame that I had for, what this molester, this pedophile did. And it's something that it seems so wrong, because we shouldn't carry the burden of what some other person did to us when we're not the ones who were guilty. Why should we have to deal with that shame? What was interesting is when I found that, in my 20s, I'm not one of these people who can't drink anymore. Like, I can occasionally have a beer or whatever, because it doesn't, for whatever reason, that doesn't affect me. Other things affect me. Like my ex-boyfriend once told me, don't ever do cocaine, ever, not even once, because if you do, you will turn into the biggest crackhead, because he could see that was my thing. I like uppers, not downers. And so I'm just saying, I feel for you guys who your thing is alcohol, because I feel lucky in that wasn't my thing, but my thing is, it would have been crack or whatever if I'd ever tried it. Anyway, so what was interesting was that I would find that when somebody did something to upset me, or that upset me, and I was angry at another person, what was crazy is it made me want to drink. And I just think, God, it's just such a messed up thing in life, where why is it that we want to damage ourselves when we're upset with another person? Like, that doesn't make sense. And it's something that I still kind of, deal with. It's just like almost a natural reaction to want to damage yourself. And the best I can come up with is that, and I'm sure there's books out there where, the answer is out there and I just haven't seen it yet, but I think that it's like when somebody hurts you, you're so mad and upset that that they were able to hurt you, that you want to do damage somehow. Like, it's your way of like releasing anger. And the most damage you could ever do to anything is damage to yourself. And you can't damage that other person. You can't hit that, or you can't hit another person or hurt another person. And so what you do is you hurt yourself as a way of releasing that pent up anger and frustration that you have. But it's so messed up, because you shouldn't be damaging yourself. You're not the asshole who did the thing. You feel like they deserve to feel the pain. And yet, it's on you, it's on us to figure out how to heal from that, how to not let it bother them, how to get past it, how to become stronger because of it. And so, you just have to learn how to heal yourself. And that's why I want to tell you guys about that book. My husband said that book really helped him. Okay, again, it's called Healing the Shame That Binds You. I will put a link for it on the page where I talk about or on the page where I want to have resources for you guys who do struggle with alcoholism. It's so funny, because when I was in my 20s, I have dated quite a few people who struggle with alcoholism. And it's so funny. I just assumed it was because I was a musician and, you hang out with a lot of people and spend a lot of time in bars. But as I got older, it just seemed like, God, is like every guy I go out with an alcoholic? Am I turning them into alcoholics? Like, seriously, when my husband was very different from every guy that I'd ever dated, okay? He was like normal as it comes. He drove a Prius. He had been married and he was a dad. He was so straight-laced, very nice, but also artistic. That was important to me. And, I just thought he was like the most normal guy I'd ever gone out with. And to find out that he was the biggest alcoholic of all, like, he knew that the only reason I broke up with my boyfriend before him, who I really liked a lot, he was a good guy, but he just had a major drinking problem, and he was abused as a kid. And, his dad beat on him. And so and I just couldn't take his drinking anymore. It was just to the point where it was like, it was horrible. And he wasn't abusive towards me. He was just, it was hard to watch him going downhill, really, really, really bad. And so, I wanted to move on with my life. And so I met my husband, and I thought for sure, oh, thank God, I finally found somebody normal who has their shit together. And he did. He had his shit together, but he struggled with this alcoholism. And when he wound up with cirrhosis, when he was in the hospital, I called his ex-wife to tell her what was going on, because, they do share children. And she told me that he had struggled with alcoholism before. He had been to AA. I was like the last person to find out all of this. Okay, we had been married for a few years already, and apparently I had married somebody who had this deep inner struggle going on. And I was like, what the heck? I'm so glad that she told me that happened before. Otherwise, I would just assume that I had been turning all these guys into alcoholics. Although, who knows? People do go after the same type of person. So it's like me and his ex-wife are both pretty, like, high energy, high strung. And so maybe we did kind of push him over the edge. I don't know. But whatever the case is, he had been through this before, and I was relieved to know that it wasn't just me. And I thought, okay, there obviously is this attraction that I have towards men who have this inner struggle. What is it? And I realized now that I'm sure it has to do with my own childhood, my own suppression, and having this inner thing that I felt like, I don't know, even my first crush in school was on a guy, well, not my first crush, but my second, the big crush that I had in high school was this guy who was being beat up at home. His mom used to beat him. And, I mean, she felt she had just reason, but, it caused him to drink. And he still drinks to this day. And, I mean, pretty bad, to the point where he was, like, getting seizures and stuff. And it's like, and I knew something was going on with him in high school because he turned into this total stoner. And, I'm fascinated by what's going on the inside of a person. Like, why do they do what they do? What are they dealing with? And how can it be fixed? Like, that's the thing. I always wanted to fix things. When I saw people had emotional turmoil, I was drawn to that. Somehow I wanted to figure out how to help somebody in that way. If there's anything I can do to help you guys, I want to help you because I struggle with the same thing, that inner thing that was damaged inside you, or you feel like it was damaged. It's not really damaged, but you see it that way, so, you make it so. And if you can just get past that and turn it into a good thing. I saw this really great thing with Robin Roberts. She was interviewing Naomi Judd, who also was molested as a kid. And she was saying that, I guess now Naomi Judd is like struggling because she's on these medications that give her the shakes and they make her face puffy. And anyway, Robin Roberts, who's great, she said, my mom used to always say, make your mess your message. And I thought, God, that's a good one. Like, it's true. We have the opportunity to be able to turn whatever negative things happen to us into something good by helping another person. At the very least, I'm sure it makes you a more empathetic person when you've struggled. People who have never struggled in life do not have the same empathy and the same appreciation for things that somebody who has struggled, feels. And so I'm just telling you guys that if there are ways that you can heal. You are not permanently damaged. Just because you have this image that, these things happen to you and, people think of you as a drunk or whatever, that's not to say that you can't completely change it. And by the way, I also want to acknowledge that, like, the reason that I'm making this recording is because I want you guys to have somebody to be able to relate to who you can relate to, because I'm kind of messed up myself, right? I've been through stuff that, technically, okay, I should qualify as somebody who's been on the level, you know what I mean? Like, okay, fine, I have not had issues with alcohol. Well, I've had phases, but, short phases. But I had other stuff. So I am somebody who sees myself as damaged too, or did see myself as damaged. And it's kind of like a constant repairing process. Just because I'm having a really good week and I don't see myself as damaged and I see myself as being really strong and powerful and productive does not mean that a half a year from now I couldn't be going through something horrible where I'm back in the hole and I feel like really, like terrible, and like your body and your life are kind of like a garden. I don't really believe in cures because I feel like it's like a garden, in that just because you weed your garden does not mean it couldn't be full of weeds tomorrow. It's about constant maintenance, and you got to be healthy. You got to feed your mind with things that are healthy. And that's another thing too I wanted to share with you guys. I have a whole bunch of videos and things that are for people who don't drink, and they're so much happier not drinking. There's like, I have a page of people who have struggled with alcoholism and don't drink anymore, and another page of people who just don't drink, and they never really had a problem with alcoholism, and they talk about why it is that they don't want to drink, because they see themselves as being stronger, not drinking. They feel like they don't need alcohol and they don't want it. And I thought, God, these people are awesome. Like, I put them all together on one page because I want you guys to see that, because you kind of need to, if you're hanging out with a bunch of other people who are drinking or doing drugs or whatever, you need to get away from those people. Okay? They may be your good friends, but if they're not going to get clean, they're just going to keep dragging you down, just like crabs in a bucket. One of the things that was so frustrating about dating that guy that I told you about that had the alcohol problem before I met my husband. He still has an alcohol problem, but I was going out with him before my husband, and he had all these friends who drank and drank and drank and drank, and it made me sick. Like, there was this one New Year's Eve we spent together. Sorry, I know this recording's getting long, but I'm just saying, you can see, this is the great thing about YouTube, is if you're tired of listening to me, you can just pause the tape or shut it off. Okay. So anyway, but I wanted to tell you about what happened. So there was like this one New Year's Eve where he told me he was going to stop smoking, and I was so happy for him and so proud of him. And then on New Year's Eve, we were hanging out with these friends of his. I don't consider them friends. You're not friends. People who drag you down are not your true friends. Anyway, so he was hanging out with these people who were like in the party crowd. He was like 40, he was in his early 40s, and these people he was hanging out with were like in their 20s and early 30s, and they're all partying it up. They had livers that were good enough so that they could sustain some more damage. He didn't. He needed help. I remember he was going to stop smoking, and then there was this one girl who was hanging out with us, and she was like, oh, you really don't want to stop smoking right away. Like it's really bad for your body, and it's, it's bad for your system to just have the shock of not smoking. And he ate up that bullshit. And he just kept on smoking. And I just remember just wanting to punch her in her face. I was so angry. I wanted to say, this guy needs fucking help, okay? You are not helping him. You're going to kill him. All you guys, all you supposed friends are going to kill this guy. And I still worry about him to this day. I think he's probably going to die of liver disease, because he's not getting help, because he's hanging around all these losers who keep on drinking and smoking and dragging him down. And he's just as bad as them. And you know why he sees it as being okay? It's because his brother was a meth addict. This is part of the reason, I think. Well, this is just my theory, okay, but I think that this is part of it. In his mind, like, his brother was a meth addict, and I think that sometimes when people have a problem, they're always looking for somebody who was worse off than them. Like, I saw this special about this guy who was like 500 pounds or something like that. And he said every time he'd go to an airport or somewhere, he'd be scanning around looking for somebody who was fatter than him. And then he felt okay. And I think that so many people who are messed up, they justify their behavior by saying, well, at least I'm not as bad as this person. Well, look at him. He was a meth addict. At least I'm just drinking and smoking. But it is bad. It's just as bad. And it's even worse when you're lying to yourself and you're trying to convince yourself that you're okay because there's somebody worse off than you. Now you're worse than that person because you're doing this whole justifying thing and you're bullshitting yourself. Don't bullshit yourself. Just accept that you have a problem and you need to fix it. other people having it worse does not make it okay for you, okay? So fix your problem. Go to AA if you have to. I'm not saying you got to go to AA for life, but if it's enough to be able to just give you people to relate to and get past your issues and then move on, I don't think you have to go to AA for life. I mean, maybe you're one of those people. One of my husband's really good friends, he's one of those people he's got to go. He's a lifer. He loves AA, and he feels like he wants to bring other people in, and good for him. If that's his way that he needs, then good for him. AA is awesome. I'm so glad it exists. But there are some people who are just, that's not their thing. That's not my husband's thing. And so, I'm trusting him. As a wife, you learn when your husband winds up in the hospital 4 times because of alcoholism, you kind of learn to always keep one eye open. Yes, I believe he's not drinking anymore. Yes, I believe that he's not going to drink anymore. But you can never, once your trust is broken in that way, you always got to keep half an eye open just to make sure they're not drinking anymore. And I'm not, but that doesn't mean that he's like damaged goods. It's all about how you see yourself. And I still love him to death. He is a good person. I'm so lucky to have him in my life and to still have him around. And I'm so grateful that we were able to find things that put him back on track. Unfortunately, we learned the hard way that, if you're walking around with these toxins floating around in your system for like a whole year, they are poisoning you to the point where it could damage your DNA, and there's no return. There's no guilt going back to where you were before. And so that's why I'm telling you guys, you got to hit this thing like it's a tsunami that's coming after you. Don't be like those tourists on the beach in Thailand in 2004 who were looking at the wave as it was coming right at them. Because the people who got taken out were the ones who waited till the last minute to do something. And I'm like one of the locals who was screaming out the window, run, run! And I see so many people I talk to, they don't turn things around soon enough and they get taken out. And you don't want to be one of those people. There's a good chance if you're able to just listen to this right now, you can turn things around. You are not irreparably damaged. It's all about what you choose to do with your life, how you choose to move forward and represent yourself. You can help other people who once you get better, you can help other people who are in that position. And that is a really powerful feeling, to be able to help somebody who, is struggling with what you used to struggle with. It's awesome. I have the best job in the world because I get to help people who are looking for ways to heal cirrhosis. And, it's like I want you guys to be able to help other people too. I talk to a lot of people who are desperately trying to save someone in their life who struggles with alcoholism. And they're just not getting through to that person. And I've asked, there are some people who have bought water machines, and I've never talked to that person who drinks the water, because they're the alcoholic who struggles with this issue. And I've said that sometimes it's like the mom who buys the machine for their daughter, and I've been like, hey, put me on the phone. Like, I will talk to them. I want to talk to them, and they just never do. I never get to talk to them. Maybe they don't want to invade their privacy or whatever. So I thought, I'm going to make a recording in case you guys ever come to my blog, so you can hear it just straight from me, because I think it's hard for you to hear it. I know it would be hard for me to hear it from all these family members who are not fucked up, or maybe they're fucked up in other ways. But you want to talk, I would want to talk to somebody who had been messed up, but they got better. Those were like the only, when I had an eating disorder, those were the people that I wanted to talk to. I was very picky about who I took advice from. I didn't want to take advice from people who were just telling me what to do. In a way, those people make it harder. They don't mean to. I know that they don't mean to, but when everybody's telling you, you need to fix this, you need to stop doing this, whatever. Not that anybody ever said, you need to fix your eating disorder, but it was pressure. It was pressure I was getting from people in our culture, and it was making it like impossible not to do the thing that I knew I wasn't supposed to do. And so I understand that pressure, and I want to just be that resource for you guys, to be that person who understands that you know, it's hard to take advice from other people who are telling you got to get your shit together. But, you know, there's a lot of people out there who you can relate to. You know, again, take a look at the videos that I'm going to post on this page. You know, I'm going to make a page that is just for people who struggle with alcohol, and I want to have another page for people who struggle with hepatitis. And on the alcohol page, there should be resources for you to look at some of these other people who have made it, who are not drinking anymore. And I'm telling you, life is so much better when you don't have these substances. Again, I still do drink coffee, but, you know, I don't smoke anymore, and I'm very, very proud of that. You know, that it's like when I stopped smoking, I just said to myself, I am never, ever, ever, ever going to smoke another cigarette again. I had this gut, deep down, just feeling that I was just resolved to never do it again, and I have never smoked another cigarette again. And I quit in 2003. And it's such a good feeling. I feel like a champion of the world because I was able to quit smoking. And I imagine, you know, I know that that's how my husband feels. He just feels so good about himself that he was able to do that. And so, you know, you don't need that. You don't, and I think that it's hard when you're an alcoholic. It's hard because, like, I know this woman. I'm not going to say how I know her because I don't want to reveal, because in case we ever reveal our identities, I don't want to be airing other people's dirty laundry, but I know somebody who, if she goes to a restaurant, I've never seen her do this, but I've heard that if she goes to a restaurant and they're like, hey, ma'am, would you like some wine? She's one of these people who can't just say, oh, no, thank you. She feels like she has to say, oh, no, I can't. I'm an alcoholic. And it's like everybody on the table is like, God, don't say that. You don't have to say that. But that's her way of coping. You know, she feels like that. And everybody has different coping ways. You don't have to talk about it. You know, whatever gets you through, you know, is great. If you're an alcoholic, if you're somebody who doesn't drink, there's such a stigma about that, because if you don't drink, if you're the person at the party who doesn't drink, you feel like everybody's going to be looking at you like, oh, you must be an alcoholic. And that's like a weakness. You don't want people to see you as being weak for not participating in something. And so that sucks. You don't want to see yourself as being weak. But that's why I wanted to show you guys this list of all these other people who don't drink just by choice. There are a lot of people out there who just don't drink because they think it's a bad idea, because they don't want to put poison in their bodies. It's actually a really, really cool thing to not drink. J-Lo's like that. I love that. I love that about her. She just is like, no, I don't really want alcohol. It's just not my thing. I don't like poisoning myself, is basically her attitude. And so, you know, you don't have to acknowledge, you know, you don't have to be like that woman that I know who's, God bless her, she's a wonderful woman, but, you know, you don't have to announce to people that you have this issue. If you choose not to drink, that can be just as so simple as you just don't want to be poisoning yourself. And if you take a look at that page that I made, that's if you go to quitwhileyou'reahead.org and you see what alcohol does to people, it's just stupid that anybody would drink, that they would just keep on drinking to the point where it's like they would be in so much physical pain. You know, like when my husband, I'll never forget, like he was losing control of his bowels, okay? He had to wear Depends for a little while. That's a bad scenario when you are you've lost control of your life and your body. When your liver starts to go, everything starts to go. You turn yellow. You are super fatigued. You can't function in the world. You know, your breath smells like death. You start losing your teeth. I mean, it's horrible. And so it's a really, really good thing to not drink and be one of the smarter people. Now that we don't drink, like I rarely drink, okay? I don't feel the need for it. If I go someplace, I might have a glass of wine, whatever, no big deal. I don't need it. And you don't need it either. You know, I understand with addictions, your body has to go through a detoxification phase because you're craving it. You're addicted to this substance now. You know, you crave what's in your system. And you do what you're normally used to doing, but that doesn't mean that you have to do that for life. You just got to get out of that phase where you're craving it. And so, you know, it's just better to live life without alcohol. And I know that you guys can do it. If I was able to give up cigarettes, you can give up alcohol. It might take some work, but you can do it. You know what I really want to see? I want to see more people creating things like, there's this thing called Phoenix Multisport. It sounds so awesome. I wish that they had as many Phoenix Multisports as they do 24-hour fitness locations, because Phoenix Multisport is for people who struggle with alcohol addiction or substance abuse. And I just thought, God, it's such a cool thing for people to have this gym where people can work out and take out their, to release their frustrations through exercise. It really is a great replacement, because that's the thing. If you don't have something to replace your addictions, it's like it's hard. It can be harder to get over it. It's like it's I once heard that people, when they're bored, like, they did this study, you might have heard of this study. They did this study on people where they put them in a room and there was nothing to do except use this machine where they'd like shock themselves. And people would rather play with the machine and shock themselves than do nothing. That's how hardwired we are to hate boredom. And so, that's how it is. Like, when you're used to drinking, like, that was the thing that me and my husband did. Okay, we'd go to the bar. We had like no life. We would go to the bar and we'd play darts and we'd drink. That was our weekend thing. We loved it. We'd hang out. We'd talk to the people there. Got to know the bartenders. And now we don't do that anymore. Now we really have no life. We just don't. I'm always working on the blog. I don't do much. But at some point we want to get back to, having a normal life. But like right now I'm just so busy working. And so, but I'm just saying, I understand, alcohol and the lifestyle that goes along with it becomes a whole thing where if you suddenly stop that lifestyle, it can seem like you have nothing to do. What are you supposed to do now? There's a lot of things you can do, okay? You can learn a new hobby. You can take up a sport. You can go running. You can train for a marathon. How much would that blow people away if you went from being the drunk person with this reputation to just blowing everybody's minds and running a freaking marathon? I mean, that would be insane. But you could do it if you wanted to, and nobody would expect it. Nobody's expecting you to ever do something like that. How cool would that be to just blow their minds and totally turn things around? And again, I want to be that one person who, well, I'm sure that, hopefully there's other people you can relate to, but if you don't have anybody, I want to be that person who's telling you, look, I understand those people in your life who are telling you, you got to stop drinking. They're making it harder for you. I know that, because I know how it was when I had an eating disorder and I felt the pressure to lose weight. And our culture just made it so much harder for me to stop overeating, because I felt like it was so annoying having that pressure. It's like, just mind your own business. You mind your business, I'll mind my business. Get out of my business and we'll all be good. But that pressure never goes away. And that pressure for you to stop drinking will never go away, because people don't want to see you killing yourselves or yourself. So you do kind of have to address it and just live with it. So either you can let it affect you in a negative way or not. But they're not going to stop doing that. And you can't be mad at them because they love you. People who are telling you to stop drinking generally are doing it because they care about you, and it bothers them to see you going downhill. And it is a very expensive thing to fix, okay? I guarantee you are somebody who does not want to pay $500,000 to doctors. I'm sure you'd prefer to keep that money and spend it on something that you want to spend it on. What I tell people is, look, if you can turn your cirrhosis around, that's kind of like walking down the street and finding a duffel bag that's got $500,000 in cash in it. Because that money represents the money that you are going to have to give to the doctors. That's just how it is. Cirrhosis, when your liver fails, everything in your body will fail and you will die. And you don't want to be in a position where they're your only hope. They're the only way you can turn things around is by doing a transplant or taking their drugs or something. And in my opinion, you can turn things around. You're not going to need to be drained if you can unclog your liver. So the question is, can you? I think it's possible. I've seen my husband, his FibroScan was down. I mean, he had stage 4. He had late stage 4 cirrhosis, end stage liver disease. He was told his only hope was a transplant. He had to be drained. He had 21 liters of fluid drained from his abdomen, and today he doesn't have to be drained anymore. He can walk 12 miles. He can run a mile in 8.5 minutes. You know, it is possible. I've seen it. I've seen it in other people. And so, you know, you have this incredible potential as a human being to be able to heal yourself and do something really good with your life and turn things around and shock the shit out of people. But you have to want to do it. And I want to put this video on the blog so that you guys can listen to it. And there's a part of me, because I can't get through to these people who, you know, say it's the daughter of somebody who I sold a machine to, and the mom got the machine for her daughter. I want this video to get to the daughter, but not to the mom, because I know if the mom gives it to the daughter may not want to listen to it, because it's a very personal thing. You need to feel like you arrived to this conclusion that you're going to change your life, not because somebody else made you, but because you wanted to do it. All 100% completely on your own. You get all the credit. And so this is what I want to say to you. If you're listening to this, just know that if somebody sent you to this site, I want to acknowledge that I get it, that person who sent you to the site is actually making it harder for you to get better. Because now by them wanting you to get better more than you want to get better, maybe not more, but you feel that pressure, because you got your own pressure on yourself, and then they're making it worse by pressuring you too. So they're essentially making it harder for you to get better by putting more pressure on you. But I want to also acknowledge that it's just the way it is. You can't control everything. That's the thing about when you've struggled with abuse or something like that. You can kind of turn into a control freak, and you can become really controlling about things. And I think that self-destructive behaviors are they're a nice way to just say, fuck it. You don't care. You don't want control. It's a nice way to just accept that you don't have control in life, and it's okay. And, because you spend so much of your life just trying to control things because you feel so out of control. And so cigarettes were just a great way for me to that was one thing I loved about smoking, was when you smoke, you just kind of feel like there's nothing that makes you feel more like just smoking that cigarette. I remember that feeling of like inhaling and then exhaling and just being like, yeah, fuck it. You just feel like it's such a good way to just not give a shit about things that would normally bother you. But you do give a shit. It's making your life worse. It's like a total lie. It's a big facade. It's this thing that's like, it's a lie. And you don't want to buy it. You're smarter than that. You don't want to buy into that. Keep on buying into that lie. The cigarettes do not make things okay. Now when I see people smoking, I'm just like, God, what is wrong with you? Like you haven't been able to get past that point where you can see what a lie that is, that you're lying to yourself. It's like, and I don't want you guys to be there. I want you to get past this, get clean, enjoy this awesome liver that you have. You have the most incredible gift of this body. If you have 2 legs that can walk, or even if you don't, if you have this, if your mind is able to just function, you are so, so incredibly lucky. If you have the power to be able to do stuff, to change somebody's life, you are so blessed. And so don't let yourself be held back by the fact that there are people out there who are trying to change and help you, okay? That person, if you were sent to this site by some person who you're annoyed with because they're trying to help you and they want so bad for you to change and you're not ready, you're not at that level yet where you want to change, don't let that hold you back from changing. they made totally, because they probably totally cannot relate to me telling you all this stuff. Okay, so this is just between you and me. Like, I get where you're coming from. That person who sent you here, they don't get it. They don't understand. They don't know what it's like to deal with self-destructive behavior. Or maybe they do, but it's just not to the level where you're at. And I want to tell you that if you get better, give yourself 110% of the credit for getting better. Because that was always my thing. If somebody told me you should lose weight, or pressured me to lose weight, or pressured me to do anything, quit smoking, no matter what it was, it became harder to do because, God forbid, they take any credit for me getting better. That was it. That's really what it boiled down to. I didn't want to give up any credit to that person for me getting better because it was so annoying. It's like, no, I deserve the credit, and this is so messed up because now you're making it harder for me to get better. And I don't want to give you any credit because I'm the one who's doing all the work. I'm the one who's struggling. Even though, truth be told, you're making their lives harder by being this source of stress in their life. Okay, let's face it. But it's still, bottom line is, it is your personal struggle. And it sucks because when you have cirrhosis or, you know, any kind of addiction, you do make it harder for everybody in your life. You are making them suffer. Okay, let's acknowledge that right now. You are putting your family. If you have cirrhosis and you're going to the hospital and all that, you know, all this stuff, you are putting your loved ones through hell. Okay, and that's not cool, and that is not fair. And you need to own that, and you need to take responsibility for that and fix that. But I get it that you don't want to do it if they're putting pressure on you, and you want to take 100% credit for yourself. Or 110%. That's fine. Take that. You deserve that. And so, you know, I just want to acknowledge that that's how much, if you are able to get your shit together and turn things around, then you deserve 110% of the credit because you get that extra credit because they made it harder for you by putting all this pressure on you or directing you to this site or whatever they did. And so, you know, that made it harder, so you deserve that extra credit, okay? Like, yeah, fine. You know, but it's really up to you to turn things around. And I'm sure they don't expect you to fully, like, I look at it like this. If you're gonna, don't just stop drinking. Like, stop drinking if you really want to, you know, because all they want you to do is they just want you to stop drinking, right? They don't expect you to become some Superman or some superhero and, like, you know, blow them away. And so what I'm saying is, if they have this kind of low expectation of you, take it to the next level. Give them something they don't expect, because that's the thing you don't want to do. You don't want to meet their expectations, you know? You want to do something different. And so I'm saying, blow them away, shock the hell out of them. And I can almost guarantee you, if they sent you to the site, if they can't relate to this stuff, they're not going to listen to this tape. Okay, so this is just a conversation between you and me. They're not going to, this is long. This has got to be at least over an hour. It's probably like an hour and a half by now. So it's like, and I'm surprised if even you're listening to this because this is getting so long. But if you've made it this far, chances are good that now this is just a conversation between you and me. And I just want to tell you that you have that potential to be able to turn things around and blow their freaking minds and make things so much better in a way that they didn't expect. Nobody's expecting you to really, you know, kick some ass. And I think that that's awesome. Like, it's great when people have low expectations because they won't expect you to do, like, really, really well, you know, in life. And so I'm just saying, you have so much more potential than the average person because nobody's expecting anything. So all this to say, okay, I better wrap this up, but please have a look at the other information I'm going to put on this page. And, you know, I also want to put some resources for motivation. Like Tony Robbins, I'd say if you guys have not listened to Tony Robbins, listen to that dude. We are so lucky we live in a day and age where we have access to these people who are on YouTube. You could listen to Tony Robbins all day for free. you could go down to your local library and borrow Tony Robbins CDs, books, DVDs. I mean, he's everywhere. And you know, or you could order his stuff on Amazon. You know, there's like audible.com. You can download some like tons of different audiobooks. I mean, literally, you could spend all day listening to self-help books and self-help tapes. I love listening to stuff like that. It makes it a lot less boring to do the dishes and house cleaning and stuff when I'm listening to things like that. And so I say, if you're looking for a way to kind of like get back on track and mentally restore your life, listen to motivating people like Tony Robbins and people who are, you know, who have struggled. Tony Robbins really struggled in his life. I think there was alcoholism in his family. I think his mom was an alcoholic, and I don't know if he was an alcoholic, but he struggled with an eating problem too. Like he had not an eating disorder, but he like binge ate, I think, and he turned things around. That's why people like to listen to him. Part of the reason is because he's somebody who was at rock bottom and he built his way back up. And so I cannot recommend his stuff enough. You know, he really can get into your psyche and help you turn things around. And he's probably part of the motivation for me making this blog. You know, like there are things that we are put on this earth to do. We're not meant to just sit around and do nothing. We're meant to help other people. So, you know, hopefully I've helped you, and I want you to help somebody else if you can. I know you can. Just do it. Get yourself better, help other people, and, you know, just live a fulfilled life. That's what you're here for. So anyway, that's it. Hope this helped you guys. There is potential for you to get better. You can heal from your own cirrhosis. Take a look at my blog. There's a lot of resources on there for different things you can do to get better. And, you know, I just want to wish you the best of luck. Okay, you guys, hang in there. I'll talk to you later.